talk about mostly the program update about what's been going on at the AHC for the last 2 years, and also talk about how the AHC has participated in Alabama's America 250 celebration. So, as she mentioned, I am Alabama born and raised. I did graduate at Auburn University at Montgomery with a environmental science and with a bachelor's in environmental science and a master's in GIS. I did serve as a GTA at AUM in regards to GIS work in 2020 and interned at ALEA in the AGIO as a GIS intern in 2021 and also interned at the HC in 2021 and as she mentioned was hired on in 2023. So, what is the AHC and how does GIS play into our mission? The Alabama Historical Commission was created in 1966 as the state's Historic Preservation Office. Every state has a SHPO, and the AHC serves as the SHPO for the state of Alabama. Our mission is to protect, preserve, and interpret Alabama's historic places. We accomplish this via two means: through the preservation and promotion of state-owned historic sites as public attractions, for which we have about 15 throughout the state, and statewide programs to assist people, groups, towns, and cities with local preservation activities, such as the National Register, the Alabama Register, Cemetery Register, tax credits, and various other number of programs. The AHC began steps towards a GIS program in 2010s by first digitizing most of our records for commission programs and then integrating them slowly into GIS map layers with the help of interns. The purpose of the GEO database is to save time and money for the commission and commission staff, as well as consultants and other state departments such as ALDOT, who need our records for a variety of reasons, such as research or projects or any number of things. And ALDOT is the largest consumer of our data. Having AHC's records integrated in a free and public database also allows for those involved to visually keep track of the state's historic resources for better preservation. The historic preservation map was released in October 2020, and our GIS portal was released in 2024. So, in the last 2 years since the last time I talked, actually on the same day 2 years ago, there have been a lot of changes in regards to our map. Main one is transition from web app builder to experience builder, but with that change, there's also new layers, new filters, icons and tools, and maps. In regards to layers, there's Alabama Church, Alabama Schools, and Alabama Cemeteries layers that have been added. There's also been a National Historic Landmarks layer, National Historic Trails and Sites, HC sites, local historic districts, Patriot cemeteries, which I will talk about later, and also a graves and markers layer. There have been new filters added to make it easier for the general public to filter out any number of pieces of information, as well as new icons and tools, such as the GIS projects icon, the local historic districts, section, township, and range, Alabama legislative districts, and HC contact information, as well as two brand new maps, which are the African American Schools map and the Patriot Cemetery map. So I will briefly show y'all. Hold on. some of the updates to the map. So this is in the experience builder version of the map. It has been created to serve as our GIS portal by its in and of itself, but also as our map. So everything that is within our GIS portal is also, you can access pretty much every single page via this map. So you click off of it, the instructional guide, and it's similar to the web app builder map. Nothing's really changed. The only new changes, really, like I mentioned, several new layers. And the biggest one is the historic preservation program filters, where you can filter for any number of pieces of data that are included within each layer. And all you do to filter is you select or type in, depending upon capabilities of each filter, and then just toggle them on, and it will filter for any number of items. A lot of what has been added has been at the request of my coworkers to make their jobs easier, but it's also to help the general public. The cemeteries layer was added because we are slowly going to be integrating, somewhat migrating the state cemetery atlas into a digital form. And so that we no longer have just a paper version of the state cemetery atlas. It is now going to be integrated into a GIS. And then you have, so all those are included, all of the various different projects that the AHC has going on are now all included within a historic projects layers tab. And then one icon slash that I am very proud of recently is adding a local historic districts. Anybody, if you're who is associated with a local, with a city or municipality or county that has GIS data for local historic districts, please shoot me an email and I will be glad to showcase your local historic district data on our map. That is both for our usage and also the general public, because not everything is within an AR or an Alabama Register or a National Register historic district. And so for those places that aren't, we can also direct people to the appropriate people in regards to getting information on how to manage their properties. And like I said, all the tabs that are associated with the GIS portal have also been included up top, so that, like I said, this serves both as a map and can also serve as a standalone portal by itself. With that, we are going to go back to the presentation. And we're going to cover the latest updates in regards to the historic preservation GIS portal. So lots of changes have been made since last time I presented. I just released the GIS portal, and obviously in 2 years, a lot can be done. I've redone the main page. I've tweaked the historic preservation, how to use the historic preservation map page. the what used to be called the Historic Preservation Open Data Portal has now been redubbed the Open Data Depot, with a lot of new added features and links. And I've created a AHC program dashboards page that is to serve as basically a snapshot of information on all of our programs for both the general public and also for my um, supervisor and staff here at the AHC. And then also I have consolidated all of our GIS historical projects within one page, and links to all the other pages for the projects that you see there, such as the African American Schools Project, the Patriot Cemetery Project, and the Architectural Survey Program, and the Alabama Cemetery Atlas Project are now all included within one generic page, and then you can find links to the appropriate page and map and dashboards within that one page. And also a link to OAR's archaeological site files has been included because we get a lot of requests as to where researchers can gain access to the state's archaeological site files, and that is managed by the University of Alabama's Office of Archaeological Research. And we do not obviously broadcast that information due to sensitivity reasons. So I will now share. We will now look at, I'll briefly show y'all the latest updates within the portal. So since last time, I have now added nice little links, quick links on the main page. And in addition to quick links, every single layer now has its own map. It's all within our main map. It's just quick links showcasing each layer. So that's the main updates to the main page. And then you have your user's guide, which is a generic. This applies to every single map that we have at the AHC. All three of our maps, everything that you see here for one applies to all the other maps. I created that away. I just create one big template, and then every map follows that one template. And it also includes information on, for instance, our preservation program filters. And then our open data depot. I redubbed it the Open Data Depot because it has more than just our data. So like a regular open data portal, all the information for each layer is housed within the appropriate icons, and you can download them as you wish. And then also we have all what used to be consolidated over several pages has now been consolidated in appropriate tabs. So you got links to public resources of sites that help me when I do my work. Like I mentioned, cities and county, local historic districts, any links to any cities for which I've been able to find, for instance, their open data portals, their interactive maps, and their local historic district data. I have also created links somewhat as a thank you for all those cities and counties that have already put all this data within a GIS. So that if anybody wants to learn or gain more access to this data, they can. And then we have state resources, which state resources such as Alabama Maps, the Archives Digital Collection, and Alabama State site files. In addition to the latest updates in regards to the Open Data Portal, the Open Data Depot, we also now have dashboards, because who doesn't like to see nice big numbers and track what's going on within a program? So you have one generic one for the preservation map that shows you the latest numbers as they get updated. And then one for every single one of our programs, such as the National Register, the Alabama Register, cemetery programs, the AHC markers program, tax credits, places in peril, survey files, easements, the African American schools layer, and the Patriot cemeteries layers. And then, as I mentioned, last time I presented, I only really had one project going on, which was the African American Schools Project. Since then, I have created basically 3 more. But they have now been consolidated, like I said, within their own page, and then links to each appropriate page have been included, as well as the maps and appropriate dashboards. And any surveys for if you want to submit, information on an African American school, the survey to submit that information is also included. And then the Patriot Cemetery Project, which I will talk about next, the Architectural Survey Program project, which is the main page for which consultants and other state departments can track updates as they update each county. And then the Cemetery Atlas Project. And if you find a cemetery, you can also submit that report here too. And then last but not least, the archaeological site files page has also been included so that we can also more easily direct people to the site. And they can gain access if they prefer. So, I know I'm quickly going over these things, but I'm trying to allow as much time at the end for questions as possible. So, we're now going to go back to the presentation. And I'm going to talk about the AHC's contribution to America 250 in the state of Alabama. So Alabama, for those that may or may not know, over the years, there have been over 1,200 documented patriots that have lived and or died within our state lines. In regards to term patriot is for this project is anyone who has served in the military or was a civilian who aided the cause, or we know to have pledged support for the cause. The Patriot Cemetery Project is an online mapping project to identify the locations of Alabama's American Revolutionary War patriots and the cemeteries in which they are buried. It is a collaboration project between the AHC and both the sons and daughters of the American Revolution. And to date, the AHC has located 505 Patriots across 420 cemeteries, with at least one cemetery in almost all 67 counties. The goal of the project is to spearhead the preservation of cemeteries in which patriots are buried, and to help document and preserve the location of and to educate the public about Alabama's American Revolutionary War patriots. And to go into more detail in regards to what we have done in relation to this, I will go back to our hub. And we will go to the projects. So, in relation to this, the efforts to support America 250, we have created a Alabama American Revolutionary Patriot Cemetery Project page, which details basically all the information that I just told you, and in addition to providing you facts about the American Revolution patriots in Alabama. For those that may or may not know, Alabama does also, in addition to patriots that have lived in Alabama, Alabama also did have a Revolutionary War battle that was fought in Alabama. It was fought in Mobile by the Spanish when the Spanish were helping the colonies in the fight against the British. So you have a lot of information in regards to patriots in Alabama. And then you have a dashboard in relation to our maps that gives you an overview of how many patriot cemeteries are in each county, how many patriots have been located, how many we still are trying to locate, and how many are listed to our cemetery register, which we ideally would like to get that number up. And then background information about Alabama's patriots. And then there's another one as to background about those that have been located, and then information on those that have not been located, and tables on both the unlocated patriots, and I am still consolidating the one on located patriots, even though they are plotted. And then additional resources where you can learn more about the American Revolution in relation to Alabama and just the American Revolution as a whole. And then we will go to the Patriot Cemetery map. Like I said, works off the same template as our main map, and it has cemetery and patriot filters over here where you can filter out any number of things such as patriot name. You can search for unit. Say if we're in a Virginia unit, turn it off, and it will filter out based upon unit. It can also filter based upon what they served. Let's see, privates. There's a lot of privates, and then it will further filter out that information. Birthplace, place of death. Not all of, we even have some foreign-born patriots that lived and died within Alabama. So you have all that information. You can turn the layer on and off. You also have boundaries to somewhat further interpret, patterns that you may see. You will see a trend in relation to distribution of cemeteries in the state where patriots are buried based upon boundaries that were extant at the time most of them lived here. Most of them do follow a pattern and migration. Madison County has the largest concentration of Patriot cemeteries within the state, but that is also because Madison County was basically one of the first areas to where Patriots and new um, migrants to the state uh, traveled. So you can explore that. You can also explore Alabama cemeteries. That's the cemetery layer. And then permits and reports and Alabama Cemetery Register. So, and then any number of links to America 250 Alabama, Sons of the American Revolution, and Daughters of the American Revolutionary War pages. And with that, got one more slide, and then I will take any questions or we can talk. So, talked about the Patriot Cemetery project, but also the AHC is proud to have the only GIS map and portal to be featured on the America 250 Alabama official website. So that's also another way that we have contributed to the America 250 celebration. So with that, I'm glad to take any questions or field anything as much as possible. Mm-hmm. I actually just thought about that the other day in regards to putting a page that somewhat shows what I am doing in relation to adding new things. For the most part, for right now, it's just the architectural site files as I update counties, but things are obviously always being updated monthly. So, but but that is a good question. I am going to put something together hopefully soon so that the public can know what's going on. Any other questions?
You mentioned also that the local county and city governments could contribute historical boundaries or historical
Mm-hmm.
district boundaries. Is there any other kind of data or public contribution that can happen with this kind of data sets that you have?
Yeah, I'm always welcome to any other data sets that the public may have. Um, in relation to historic preservation. But obviously, acquiring local historic districts is one thing that of is one layer of that we would like to host as much as possible. But if anybody has any other GIS layers in relation to historic preservation, we are more than welcome to consider them, and if not add them to the map, we will at least, you know, try to create links, within our open data portal if people want that information to be made public and accessible. So, any other questions? I know I went over everything fairly quickly, but was trying to fit it all in. So,
I have a question about protected status. Looking at the portal, is there an obvious attribute or a quick way of knowing, you know, what protection exists and whether that actually does much, like an easement versus in a historic district versus just listed, because that's very varied in terms of whether a property is actually protected from change or demolition.
so you're after trying to follow. So you're after. So the question is, do we have like easements listed,
I see
or
easements
yes,
are
sir.
listed, but just status of protection, because some things are listed on the National Register does not provide any physical protection from the building being demolished if it's outside of a historic district.
Yes,
So
sir.
how do
Um,
I kind of find what the
Go ahead.
likelihood of it being lost is really?
Um, so I think you're in regards to protections outside of easements, in regards to like national register and all that. Really, we ideally things that are listed to the national register, you ideally hope that they do not get destroyed or and all. We cannot physically tell anybody, what they can and cannot do with their own property. But, if something were to happen, we can also further advise what they can do. But um, if, say, a property was moved, like a recent project site was moved from Alabama to Michigan, we can delist them. Easements are in place at the request of property owners and at the request of, say, the state or National Park Service. And that's really the only way that easements that further protect a property get established. So not every single National Register site has an easement, and not every place that has an easement may or may not be on the National Register. Did I answer? I hope I answered that.
Yeah, I don't know that there is a definitive answer for kind of a database of buildings that are protected versus buildings that are at risk because they don't have protection other than inside a historic district. Because we have
Yes, sir.
a tiny percentage of land covered by actual physical protections.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Uh, yeah. Um, just if y'all have any information, any questions, want to know anything else, just shoot me a link at my email or give me a call. Um, I'll be glad to talk. Yeah. Nice speaking to y'all.